Thank you so much for coming in to the warning signs of an emotionally abusive relationship. So this is something that everyone can pay attention to, whether you are in an abusive relationship, out of one, or a friend or family member of someone who is affected by this. And I am really privileged to have Natalie Hoffman here. Natalie is a mother of 9. She's a writer. She's a life coach for women of faith in destructive relationships. And that's really important because, we'll get into that in a little bit. But she survived a 25-year emotionally abusive marriage. She's walked through a painful divorce and excommunication from her faith community, and she's now happily remarried to a healthy man. So she runs Flying Free, which is a private online support group that provides education, connection, and healing for survivors. So Natalie, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit more about your website and your the support group. That sounds really cool.
Well, I have a blog, a website where I write for emotional abuse survivors. And my audience is women of faith. So that's kind of my niche. And I want to get into that a little bit later about why women who come out of religious backgrounds tends to be a really big issue in that area. So anyway, I write on the blog, but I also, a year ago, I decided to open up a small membership group just for a few people. It was kind of an experiment at first, just to provide them with 2 things that I felt like they needed. One was support and encouragement from their peers, other women who were going through the exact same thing and could understand and validate their experiences.
Right.
And then also education on what was happening to them, and help in helping them take baby steps to getting out of their relationship. Either if they wanted to get out of their relationship, or if they wanted to stay in their relationship, how to stay and stand up for themselves, set healthy boundaries, try to navigate their relationship that way.
Right.
And so it started off small, and it's really grown this last year. I ended up putting together an actual membership site, a website that has all of our courses and resources housed on that site. And I open up the membership group every 4 months for a new group of women. And it's been an incredible journey, and I've had some fabulous feedback. I have many of the women who've been with me for a whole year now and still going strong. So.
Oh, I love it. That's the thing that early on, or like 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, people didn't know what this was. It wasn't as more widely known what emotional abuse was out in the population. I certainly didn't know when I was going through my tough stuff. And so I'm really happy that you've put this resource out there. And because I think the more you know about it, the better you can help yourself. So let's dig into, first of all, because this summit is for people who are in or just getting out of emotionally abusive relationships, but it's also for their friends and family. And a lot of times it's not really easy to tell if someone's being emotionally abused, or we tend to kind of dismiss it. They fly under the radar. So Tell me a little bit about that. Is it really easy, or how can you tell that a person has an emotionally abusive partner?
I think that the signs are always there, and they reveal themselves over time. The problem is that they're very subtle, and many women easily dismiss them if they're too emotionally caught up in the relationship prematurely.
Right.
So when a woman knows in advance what to look for, that's great. And I think it's really important that the information gets out there so that women do know what to look for. But that's only the first step to avoiding an emotionally abusive relationship. The second and most critical step is being invested enough in her own well-being that she refuses to continue moving forward in a relationship that is starting to exhibit the initial signs of being emotionally abusive. She needs to be strong enough inside of herself to set aside her feelings of infatuation or excitement in being in a new relationship with someone who's probably love bombing her, to be
Right.
able to step back and evaluate the relationship from a more realistic long-term perspective. So, I always say that saying no to one thing is saying yes to something else. If you say no to something that feels really, really good, that's very hard to do. But if you
Yes.
don't say no to that, then you are saying no to a happy future with a different person who is healthy. So the temporary good feels are not really worth the heartache that comes later. And the more time that goes by, the harder it is to get out of an emotionally abusive relationship. It can be devastating on many levels.
Oh, yeah.
So the earlier that you can get out, the better.
And I think it's difficult for women because, and I've heard women say this, I need a man in my life, or I really want, and you crave that. We were designed to crave that, and our heart is yearning for somebody to love us. And when it appears on the surface that there is love, in fact, the love of your life, or the one, you tend to dismiss some of the red flags, some of the things that, really are a warning sign that you should get out. So let's talk about what some of those red flags are that might indicate that you or someone you love is in an emotionally abusive relationship.
Sure. I have a PDF on my website, and so I'll just go through those 10 things that I put on that PDF real briefly. One, when you try to have a discussion about an issue, your partner doesn't help you attack the issue, but instead he attacks you as a
Mm,
person. Whereas
yes.
in a healthy relationship, two people will attack the problem together while respecting one another as individuals with different perspectives.
Right.
Number two, when you ask your partner to stop doing something that's hurting you, he'll turn it back on you by denying that he did it, or shaming you, or accusing you, or maybe minimizing what he did, or blaming you for the problem. But in a healthy relationship, when you ask your partner to stop doing something because it hurts you, that person will respect your boundaries and apologize for crossing them.
Right.
Number three, you've lost who you used to be, and now you feel that you have to be whoever your partner says you are.
Hmm.
But in a healthy relationship, both partners are safe to be exactly who they are. A fourth one is, and again, this goes along with the people that I help, the women in faith communities. The Bible is often used to control and shame them.
Yeah.
But in a healthy relationship, the Bible would be used to build up and encourage each other.
Hmm.
Five, when you're successful or good at something, your partner is your critic, and you have a sense that he's jealous. If you're having a parade, he is sure to rain on it.
Right.
But in a healthy relationship, when you're successful, your partner celebrates with you and is your biggest fan. Number six, you can't trust your partner all the time. But in a healthy relationship, there is mutual trust. Number seven, when something happens, sometimes you'll be told, well, that didn't happen. Or you might be told something was said that wasn't said, and you feel very confused a
Right.
lot. In a healthy relationship, though, there is none of that confusion or self-doubt. Eight, when you experience a setback or sadness, your partner doesn't seem to notice or care much. In fact, sometimes he'll ignore you or become irritated with you when you are in a place of needing something from the relationship.
Hmm.
But in a healthy relationship, there is concern and empathy, and both partners get to have their needs met. Number nine, the only way to resolve conflict is to give in and sweep it under the rug. Your partner is never wrong.
Right.
But in a healthy relationship, two people work together respectfully until a resolution is reached. And both partners are willing to be right about some things and wrong about others. And the last one is that you feel you must set your own desires, needs, and opinions aside in order to keep your partner happy in the relationship. But in a healthy relationship, both partners equally honor the desires, needs, and opinions of the other person.
Oh my gosh, that was an amazing list. I wish I'd had that 10 years ago
Yeah, me
or
too.
20 or 30 years ago. In fact, I think we need to share that with our teenagers and young adults,
Yeah.
because I love the contrast of what is not a good relationship and what is a good relationship. So you can kind of step back and say, are these things happening? And And you can kind of gauge your relationship based on that. And it's really clear. And these are types of things you would get from a counselor and help understanding, but you have these in this a sheet of paper so you can kind of see, which is wonderful. So how soon can you see some of these red flags? How soon can you know that someone is in an emotionally abusive relationship?
As soon as the relationship moves into a place where you make your needs known and expect that it's going to be a two-way street, that's when you're going to start to get some kickback if it's an emotionally abusive relationship. People like this don't do well with the needs of others because life is about them, not you.
Right.
So as long as you're giving and giving and giving, and you're not really expecting a whole lot in return, they're going to think that you're the cat's PJs and everything is going to stay, smooth.
Mm-hmm.
So I suggest early on that you establish very strong boundaries. One of the biggest ways that you can know for sure is to refuse to have sex with them. If you can make that a hard and fast boundary, no sex, watch how quickly they'll dump you.
Right.
Abusive men believe they are entitled to sex from you. They're entitled to touch you as they please. They're entitled to your body.
That is absolutely true. And in hindsight, I think a lot of women will look back and say, oh yeah, I gave up on that too early. And I didn't set those boundaries, and it's for yourself. And you're absolutely right. They do not want to hear no from you. And when they do, they throw a tantrum, they will belittle you. They will, try to, again, love bomb you. Let's define love bomb. Can you define love bomb?
Sure. It's just, they're trying to it's like a worm on a hook. To a fish, a juicy worm, it looks so delicious and so yummy, and it's just dangling right in front of you, and you just want to eat it so bad. But, and so that's what they do. They're love bombing you. So they might be taking you out to really nice dinners and making promises of the future, or saying, let's go to Cancun or whatever. And what they're really trying to do is get in your pants, honestly. I mean, that's what a lot of them are trying to do. I'm remarried, and that was not my experience with my healthy partner at all. He was not trying to get into my pants. He was trying to get into me. He was totally into me as a person. And that was one of the ways that I knew, I was looking for red flags, believe me. That was one of the things that I was really aware of, is what his motives were and what he was after. So
that's absolutely true. So how do you recommend, or let me ask this question. If there were only one key to understanding whether or not someone was emotionally abusive, what would that be?
It's that they don't take responsibility for anything. So when they exhibit bad behaviors, or even just to make an innocent mistake, like all humans make mistakes, okay?
True.
They'll deny it. They'll make excuses for it. They'll blame you or someone else for it. They'll minimize it. They're always right. They're always, always, always right. And if they're always right, that makes you always wrong and always responsible for their behavior. So basically, an emotional abuser works at assigning responsibility to their intimate partner for their own behaviors and emotions. They look outside of themselves to manage their pain rather than taking personal responsibility for it. Bob Hamp of Think Differently Counseling says it like this: the abuser says, I've done something with my pain to you, and now I'm going to blame you for it. Right. And the abuse target believes it's her place in this world to take that blame and make him feel better. The abuser says, I'm not an abuser. I'm just a man with a little problem that gets a lot worse when she does something I don't like. But the abuse target says then, well, I've got the tools and skills to help him with his pain and problem. And this is what sets up this ongoing chronic cycle of emotional abuse. So in a nutshell, they don't take responsibility for themselves.
And we play into that because we want to nurture people. We want to help them feel better. And when we can help them feel better, we feel better about ourselves, right? And so we kind of help perpetuate that cycle by trying to appease them, trying to, prevent the anger, prevent them from blaming us when all we're doing is playing right into their hands. And I wanted to mention something else too, that the whole blame game, you might hear, oh, my boss did this. For instance, mine said, "Oh, my boss didn't take this suggestion I made, so I just walked out." You know,
Yes.
and
Red
at first I
flag.
thought, "Wow, how freeing might that be to not have a conscience about walking out of your job?" And little did I know,
Yeah.
you know, walked out of
Total
every other
lack of
job or got,
responsibility.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So it might be past girlfriends or past wives or past relationships, relationship with their family. Oh, they don't love me enough, or they did this to me. And so that those are all red flags when you
Yep.
start to see them blaming other people, and you might play into it and say, "Oh, you poor thing, you had a bad childhood," or you deserve better work than that. They didn't treat you right. And you
Mm.
are just playing right
Yeah.
into that and getting sucked in.
Yep. Unfortunately, yes. And that is how, that's how nice women are. We're just nice,
Yes,
kind,
we
empathic
are.
people. We just want to help other people, and we just want to love, and yeah, we get sucked in.
And save the world, which
Exactly.
we cannot do. You've got
Mm-mm.
to save yourself first. Let me ask you a quote, kind of a subsequent question to that. If I'm on the outside looking at someone else, can I see some of this with, let's say, a friend or a family member in a relationship with somebody? Is it often seen, or is it more hidden in that case?
Sometimes actually it might be easier for someone on the outside to see it. Especially like I have a teenage daughter, and I know I'm going to be hyper vigilant to watching,
Mhm.
who and she's actually had a relationship with one boy who nothing really came of it, but there were some red flags about him in my mind. So it was easier for me to see it than for her to see it. Cause when you're emotionally involved, you really want to believe that they're a good person and that they're
Right.
gonna, that this is gonna be a good thing. Whereas someone on the outside, a parent or a really good friend, they might be more apt to see, this person seems kind of selfish, or this person doesn't really seem to appreciate how amazing you are. And um, so that can happen. But alternatively, everyone might miss it. A lot of times, these guys come across very charming to
Oh,
everybody,
yes. Yes.
and they are purposefully trying to make sure that everyone surrounding their target believes they are amazeballs, because
Mhm.
if anything ever goes down with the target, they want everyone to be on their side, not on her side. And that does happen.
Right.
Unfortunately, it happens way too often that when she ends up waking up and getting out of the relationship, he actually garners the support of everyone around her that used to be supportive of her, and he gets them to turn on her too. Like he's the
Ab-
victim then. So it's
Absolutely.
crazy. It's kind of a crazy dynamic, but
Yeah. And the other way to help prevent that, maybe, or to ameliorate that a little bit, is have some friends and tell them the truth.
yeah,
I know a lot of women who will, tell half truths or not the truth because you're trying to protect your partner, right, from someone else's condemnation or someone else saying, "Hey, you should get out of that relationship." And so you're protecting your abuser by lying about it. So
yep,
have several relationships where you can be open and honest, and do be open and honest, because that might be really valuable feedback to you.
yep. I love that. That's great advice.
So you're out of the relationship. Let's talk about that. I know some women who say, like I said, I need a man. I'm looking for somebody. I just want the right person, and I want to be in a relationship. I don't want to spend the rest of my life by myself. And you have other women, I never want to be in another relationship with another man ever again. I'm happy by myself. That was me.
Mhm.
um, and so, how do you approach maybe a new relationship if you want to avoid becoming snared by this emotionally abusive person again? Because you are at risk of being sucked in again. Even if you've come out of an abusive relationship, you are at risk of having another one. So, talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's important to approach a new relationship very slowly and with really good boundaries. So, in between relationships, if you are just healing from an emotionally abusive relationship, I would say really work at getting strong inside of yourself when you're happy alone, that's when you're actually going to be you're going to have your best self to lay down on the table in offering to another human being. And you're also going to be most apt to recognize a healthy person versus someone who's not so healthy. So I always recommend the book Boundaries by Henry Cloud and John Townsend. If listeners haven't already read that book, it's one book that I think everyone in the world needs to read that book.
Yes.
I just think if everyone in the world had healthy boundaries, this world would be a completely different place to live in. So how this would practically play out is, as I suggested earlier, don't give them sex right away. A healthy man is not going to expect sex. I promise. Mm-hmm. If you want someone who's really interested in you, like the really awesome you inside of yourself, you do not want an entitled man who thinks that your body is his business. Right. So when you give your body to someone, you want to know 100% that man is totally into you and not just your body. If he expects you to put out, then you can expect to have to put out every time he wants it, because you're in his life for one reason only, and that's to service his needs. Okay. Now he'll give you things to make you think that he loves you. That's the whole love bombing thing, but it's really just to get in your pants. And if you marry him, he'll make you think that you owe him service as his wife. That happens a lot in religious circles. Sexual abuse is very common in emotionally abusive relationships.
Yes.
So I would say when you're first getting to know someone, listen to what he's talking about. Is he interested in your life and your interests and your goals, or is he really just interested in his life and his interests and his goals and you, and somehow you fit into those? A healthy man is going to love you, who is going to love you for life, is looking for a multi-dimensional relationship where both partners are open, honest, and vulnerable. So,
yeah, I like the open and honest, because if you feel like you have to lie to your partner, that's not a good relationship.
No,
right?
No, exactly. If you have to be someone else to make him happy, that's really sad right from the beginning, because you are an amazing person just as you are.
Exactly.
And there is someone out there who's going to appreciate and really love that. So you want to make sure that you can keep yourself intact and ready to go for that person out there that's going to appreciate you and see you for who you are.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if he's really vague about his life, I've noticed that abusive individuals are very, it's almost like they're disconnected emotionally. They're disconnected to their own emotions and their own inner world. They don't have a real high emotional, EQ.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Right.
I think those are red flags that he's probably not going to be able to have an intimate relationship with another person that's really deep. And if you feel like you're the one who has to manage his emotions all the time, that's another big red flag. A good man he manages his own emotions. He's not going to expect you to do that for him.
Right. We go back to that control issue too. A lot of times it's not even about the sex, even though it's about the sex. It is not about the sex. It's about controlling you, when and where you have it, how often. Like you said, your body is not your own, but it's controlled by them. And then when they're ready to move on, they will move on and discard you and try to still keep you around for other reasons and go on to other relationships, even when you don't even realize that's happening. So
that's so true. And some are not into having sex with you a lot. They're actually into using sex or withholding sex from you too. They'll do it that
I've
way.
heard that too. Yes.
Yeah. So it can be sexually abusive in a lot of different twisted ways. So
mine was said, hey, we need to have sex, 4 times a week. And I'm like, what if I'm out of town or I don't want to? And he's like, well, you can make it up to me the next week. I'm like,
oh, so there was like a certain number of times that you're supposed to.
It was highly regulated. So I'm like, that's not right.
No, that is definitely not right.
So yes, if it's regulated or your feelings don't play into this, then that's a huge red flag as well.
Yes. I was going to say too that, as soon as you start seeing these things, and this is really hard to do, but as soon as you start seeing these things, you should really break it off then. Because here's the thing, relationships with narcissists are very emotional and volatile. leaving can be really difficult because of this. So if you're having a hard time breaking it off, that's just one more huge red flag, a huge reason to actually do exactly that.
Absolutely. So you mentioned religion, and tell us a little bit about what role does religion play in emotionally abusive relationships?
It can play a huge role. In many religious circles, people are taught things that actually play right into an abuser's hand. So here's just a few of the most common ones. Men are leaders, while women must obey and follow. Forgive and forget, or you are a bitter, ungrateful woman.
Right.
Don't tell anyone that your partner is being mean, because that's gossiping. You are just as much of a sinner as he is, so you focus on your sin and leave him alone. Marriage is forever. No divorce allowed.
Right.
If you are suffering in your marriage, then you have a great opportunity to be just like Jesus, who also suffered. So in my coaching business, I work primarily with women of faith, and it's these and other beliefs that have kept them involved in their destructive relationships for decades. Literally 2 to 4 decades, some of these women. And by the time they're working with me, a lot of them have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and they're shells of themselves. Of what they were before they married their abuser. Many of them, here's the other thing though too, many of them turn to their churches to try to get help, only to be turned away and shamed and blamed. And even as what happened to me, even getting excommunicated for standing up for themselves.
Wow.
So, it was their faith that really kept them stuck. And I just do not believe that is the heart of God for human beings.
No.
I think it tells a lie about who God is and how he views men and women. And that's why I'm particularly passionate about helping women who've been stuck in that kind of environment. And I'm a Christian woman. I love Jesus, but I do not like the kind of organized religion that perpetuates this kind of thinking about women and their place, and that somehow it's okay for them to be used and abused, but it's not okay to stand up to a man who's doing that to them. That's just so wrong on so many levels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what would you recommend somebody who has some of those thoughts, because either, they've been placed in your head from childhood, and I am a Christian as well. And so you're taught some of these forgive and forget, and, turn the other cheek, and all of those things that you mentioned. How do you change your mindset around with that?
You do have to one of the things we do in our group is we do a lot of rewiring of the brain, because our brains these things have been drilled into our heads. Some of us grew up in the Christian faith, and we believe these things from the times we were children. And these things they're actually twisted ways of looking at the Bible.
Right. They're not taken in context.
They're not at all. And they're twisted to kind of fit an agenda. I mean, back in the days of the Civil War, Christians fought to keep slaves, and they used the Bible to back up their beliefs that some people should be slaves. So you can use the Bible and twist it in any way you want to make it mean whatever you want to. That doesn't mean that it's biblical or that it's right. So what I do with women is we work on rewiring some of these lies that they're believing about what the Bible says. And there are a lot of books that have been written that systematically go through. There's some great blogs out there. In some of the courses that I offer inside of the Flying Free group, we specifically talk about, I have one course that's called Bible Flippers, and we just take we take 10 of these Bible verses and we flip them, and we show what they actually really mean, because they actually mean the opposite of what some of these controlling religious leaders say they mean. Right. And I can't get into that here, but it's very fascinating to go through it and study. So that just opens up a whole new world for these women to see things differently. And then that starts to create a shift inside of them where they see, what's happened to me is actually wrong. And if I can get rid of that guilt, all of that guilt and that shame and that blame that's been poured on me, and I can start seeing myself as a child of a God who loves me and wants to protect me and wants me to get out of my abusive relationship. He's not up there going, you need to stay in your abusive
Right.
relationship.
Exactly.
He is
Yeah.
not, he does
No,
not support that.
yes,
So
absolutely.
once you can break free of that kind of thinking about who God is and what his plan is for you, and that it's not that, then you can start actually getting the motivation to take steps to get out of that destructive relationship and find true freedom in your relationship with God, as well as in your personal life, in your emotions, and your physical well-being gets better, and everything just kind of opens up for you.
And you can live a life of joy. I love joy. I mean, you don't think at this moment in time you can experience joy, but you absolutely can. You really
Yes.
absolutely can. And you were talking about, once they get out. So how does somebody get out? What's the method, or what are some baby steps they can take?
Um, Well, I have watched many women get out of emotionally abusive relationships, and I've watched them from the very beginning when they aren't even really sure if they're in an emotionally abusive relationship, all the way to the end where their divorce is being finalized and they're finally flying free. And based on my observations and my own experience walking through that, I wrote an article on my website called 10 Steps Out of Relationship Hell, where I describe an abusive relationship as being like being in a deep, dark pit. And it's really horrible down there. But the only way out is up a ladder that has 10 red hot rungs. And each step is really hot and painful. And you're tempted when you're climbing and you're touching these hot rungs and they're burning you, you're tempted to just let go and drop back down into the pit. But if you can hang on, you will eventually get to the top and climb out. And then you get to cheer on the others who are making that impossible climb. The
Right.
10, I go into more detail about what these ladder rungs are, but they are, the 10 rungs really briefly here are fear, number 1, 2, trying to get your abuser to change, 3, grief because your abuser doesn't really love you, 4, you tell someone and they don't take you seriously, 5, you decide to separate, 6, you file for divorce, 7, you're rejected and kicked out of your social circles, 8, your kids suffer and grieve, 9, you are single and alone, and 10, you have health problems. But I have watched so many women go through these steps and come out on top, flying free emotionally and spiritually. And they, really, they are strong, powerful women by the time they go through all of that.
Right.
And that's one of the most rewarding things about what I do.
That's
Yeah.
an amazing analogy. I love that, because that's exactly what it is. They're red hot and it hurts. And life is not going the way you really imagined it. In fact, it's going probably the worst possible scenario than you imagined it. It's probably worse than your worst imagination. I know for a lot of women it is, but it is worth it for the joy on the other side. Really.
Yes. I was going to say, I tell some of my women will ask me, if they can stay, learn how to be strong and just stay. And I tell my clients that, we can't recover from a case of food poisoning if we keep eating tainted food. So it's really hard to recover from emotional abuse if we continue to be emotionally abused on a regular basis. And that's why they need that support and encouragement from their peers meaning other women who are going through the same thing, as well as probably a lot of the people that you're going to be interviewing in this conference. There's so many tremendously, incredibly helpful resources out there that can help these women, be educated and learn how to get out.
Exactly. And that's not to say that everybody doesn't have their own timeline, because everybody does, whether if you have kids or if you need time to set up your own bank accounts and kind of make a safety plan. So it doesn't mean as soon as you recognize this, you have to get out right away, but you do need to start taking steps to protect yourself and then have that safety plan in place.
Oh yeah, it can take years actually. I mean, I think it took me 5 years from the time that I first started waking up to the time I was completely done. 5 years of pretty much sheer hell.
Right.
But I was with my partner my ex-husband for most of those years, which was until the last 2 years that I was out of that, not with him physically. But, so even when you're living with him, you can at least be starting to get, starting to learn and access those resources and get strong. and yes, make a safety plan and kind of figure things out. So yeah.
Absolutely. Let's go back a little bit. What are these type of emotional abusers? What are they looking for in somebody, like a target? Because that's exactly what they are. They target nice people, people who are people pleasers. They target all types of folks like that who are nurturers. What are some ways that an emotionally abusive person finds their target and then sets up their target?
Well, human beings are interesting. We have this thing inside of us that is stronger than reality, and it's our want to believe force.
Mm-hmm.
We want to believe certain things, and therefore we think those things are real. This is what magic is based on, like magic tricks.
Right.
We want to see certain things, and so we think that we saw them. We want to believe that this other person loves us, so we only see the things that feed into that belief, and we conveniently ignore anything that doesn't fit into that belief. We want to believe that someone is nice and cares and has empathy, so those are the things that we're going to see about them. And here's the thing though, an abuser knows this and plays off of it when he's grooming his target. So they hack this reality and create a reality for us that makes more sense than the truth, that they're actually a psychophile who's trying to get into our head and control us.
Right.
They are looking for a nice, easygoing woman who cares about people and is a people pleaser, someone with few boundaries or easy to remove boundaries, someone who has the same kinds of religious beliefs that I described earlier. An emotional abuser will groom his target by making her believe that he's a lot like her and giving her what he thinks that she wants.
Right.
He listens carefully for signs that she's a caring, empathic person who will bend over backwards to make her relationships work. He's listening for religious cues that she will cater to his needs and that she'll feel guilty if she tries to stand up for her own needs in a relationship.
Yes.
He observes the kinds of things she is most insecure about, as well as the things she's most invested in. And he uses those things against her when he's worming his way into her head to control her.
Exactly.
And once he knows that she is fully invested in the relationship, and sex, by the way, is one of his biggest signs that she is, he's going to feel free to start offending her then. And when he offends her, he'll observe her reactions to his offenses. If she calls him out, he'll immediately accuse her of being harsh and angry and making a big deal out of nothing. He'll accuse her of things that she isn't, and he'll cause her to begin a journey of self-doubt and self-loathing. He will keep her off balance just enough to control her behaviors through his mind games.
Yeah, I've seen that for myself in my own relationship. I've seen that in other women and the men that abuse them. That is right on target, and sadly enough.
Yeah.
All right, before we go, tell us again what a healthy relationship looks like, because I don't think we can emphasize that enough. And so you can compare, what does your relationship look like compared to something that is healthy, that not only just looks healthy, but really and truly is a healthy relationship. Tell us what we should be looking for.
Well, John Gottman has a questionnaire in his book. It's called 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And I was married to an emotionally abusive man for 25 years. And these things in his questionnaire were not true at all about that relationship. But I'm now remarried to a healthy, mature adult man, and every single one of these things is true. And here they are. I'm going to read them. So if you're listening and you think, you know what, my relationship is a lot like, I can say yes to most of these things, and you're probably in a healthy relationship.
Right.
And if you have to say, oh my word, no, to most of these things, you're probably in a very destructive relationship. So here we go.
Okay.
We enjoy doing small activities together, like washing the dishes or watching TV. I look forward to spending my free time with my partner. At the end of the day, my partner is glad to see me. My partner is usually interested in hearing my views. I really enjoy discussing things with my partner. My partner is one of my best friends. When we go out together, the time passes quickly. My partner usually learns a lot from me, even when we disagree. My partner wants me to feel that what I say really counts. My partner wants me to be influential in our marriage. I think that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be influential in our marriage. I love that one. My partner thinks I have a lot of common sense. My partner believes in lots of give and take in our discussions. My partner thinks I'm basically a great help as a problem solver. My partner tries to listen respectfully, even when we disagree. I feel confident that we can resolve most issues between us. We are good at taking breaks when we need them. My attempts to repair our discussions when they get negative are usually effective. We can discuss even big differences between us with respect. My partner expresses appreciation for the nice things I do. Our relationship is romantic and passionate. My partner regularly tells me, I love you. My partner expresses respect and admiration toward me. We can talk about sex easily. My partner courts me sexually. We touch each other tenderly in a fair amount. When I get sick, I feel loved and taken care of by my partner. My partner supports what I see as my basic mission in life. My partner values my accomplishments, and my partner honors the personal goals I've set that are separate from the marriage. I think that's a great list to go by.
That is a fabulous list. And I, like you, have found someone who is very mentally, physically, spiritually healthy. So I was checking off all of those, and I love it. So there is hope for a fabulous relationship
Yes.
after an abusive one, but you have to do the work in between to get yourself healthy so that you come into a new relationship, if you so choose, as equals and with a great mindset, and not accepting that abusive behavior.
Right.
Wow. Thank you, Natalie, so much for being here, for sharing your knowledge. First of all, also for being there for women of faith and anyone in an emotionally abusive relationship, and providing those resources, because heaven knows there's a lot of women out there who are seeking or who need some help. So I really appreciate it. Tell us again where we can find you at.
My website is flyingfreenow.com. And if you can sign up to get my articles at the very top of the page.
Fabulous. Flyingfreenow.com, you said, right?
Yep.
.com. Okay. Natalie, awesome, wonderful. And I know that, the people who listen to this and watch this are going to take this and really make their lives better from it. So thank you.
So thank you for having me.